Okay, as we do often, come together at a time like this to celebrate and identify things that we will all need to be aware of in our community. I have a proclamation to read on National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, genders, and income levels. Domestic violence is widespread and affects over 4 million Americans each year and directly impacts every level of any personal relationship. In 2022, there were 15,479 reports of domestic violence. And whereas personal relationships should be a source of comfort and support, a solid foundation for each person's empowerment and achievement in his or her daily life, domestic violence dissolves that foundation, affecting millions of men, women, and children. And whereas domestic violence costs the nation billions of dollars annually in medical expenses, police and court costs, shelters, foster care, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity. And whereas during the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we reassert our commitment to eradicating this devastating crime so that all homes are places of refuge and love, not of fear and violence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Council of the Township of Sparta does hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we encourage all residents to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, services, and assistance to all victims. Is Kimberly Spangen here? Kimberly, would you accept this for us? Thank you for. Sorry?
I'm Athena Storm.
Oh, hi, Athena. I'm Dan. Thanks for joining us today.
Unable to make it.
I understand. Please accept this, and
Yeah.
could you, do you have something to share with us?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll hold this if you want to pick that up here.
You're awesome. Thank you. Good evening. I am deeply honored to have been asked to stand before. Yep, I can get this right. I'm deeply honored to have been asked to stand before you today supporting National Domestic Violence Awareness Month and to accept this proclamation. Domestic violence is a critical issue that affects individuals and families across all walks of life, regardless of age, race, gender, or socioeconomic status. It is an issue that demands our attention, compassion, and action. Raising awareness about domestic violence is not merely about acknowledging its existence. It is about fostering a society where such acts are not tolerated, victims are supported, and perpetrators are held accountable. By coming together and shedding light on this pressing issue, we send a powerful message that love should never be associated with fear, that homes should be havens of safety and respect, and that every individual deserves to live a life free from violence and intimidation. With a 5-fold increase seen in the last year or so in Sussex County, bringing awareness to domestic violence involves dispelling myths, educating our communities, and encouraging open dialogue is more imperative now than ever. It requires us to challenge the stereotypes surrounding this issue and provides resources and support to those affected. It calls for teaching our children about healthy relationships, consent, and empathy so they can grow up in a world where mutual respect is the norm. We must also recognize the courage of survivors who have shared their stories. Their bravery is a beacon of hope, inspiring others to break the cycle of abuse and to seek help. Together, we can create an environment where survivors are not blamed or denounced, but instead embraced with understanding, empathy, and wavering support. I urge each of you to be vigilant, listen without judgment, and speak out against domestic violence. Working together can create a community where everyone feels safe, valued, and empowered. Let us stand united in our commitment to raising awareness, advocating for change, and fostering a society where domestic violence has no place. Thank you.
Let's do one more look here, please. Oh, you're shaking. This is my side job here. One more, please. Well said.
Thank you. Ms. Berg, while you're up here, would you let us know about what resources are available if you are a victim of domestic violence? Do we have shelters in Sussex County where they can go to and have safe haven?
Yes, we have a safe house in Sussex County, where we are working to build a new capital campaign.
Okay, and that capital campaign, that is reliant on, private donations, is that right? Okay. So if anyone's listening, one, we have shelters. Two, we're trying to expand it, given the need. I think you said there's a five-fold increase in Sussex County? Wow, okay. So we have a high demand, and the supply is running short, so, okay. Well, thank you, and thank you for, all the work that you do.
Would you mind, just if you could grab that microphone, just repeat for everyone who might be watching, just what first step they can take if they wanted to reach out? Who to contact or where to go?
Okay. On Daisy's website is our hotline, and you can call our hotline. Someone is available 24/7, and they will direct you to the services that are necessary for you. Should it be a sexual violence incident, we would have our sexual violence response team answer their call, and they would walk them through everything. Domestic violence as well, we have a domestic violence response team. And then from there, we would take them through the necessary steps through the legal system, should they need the safe housing and everything else that they need. Daisy walks them through step by step.
Okay, so just dasi.org. Right?
DASI.org.
Great.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the June 27, 2023 regular meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comment? Right. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, the meeting minutes are approved. Will the manager please present the manager's report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we have an appointment of a fireman at the recommendation of Chief Chris Aguilio. I would like to appoint Joseph Tracy as the member of the Sparta Township Fire Department. Mr. Tracy previously served as a volunteer firefighter in Ocean County and will quickly become a full active firefighter serving the residents of Sparta. Tax Department, as a reminder, the annual tax sale of 2022 and prior year delinquents and other municipal charges is scheduled for tomorrow, October 11th, starting at 9 a.m. through an online auction available at https:// Sparta, If anybody wants the website, they can come up and get it after we're done here. Public Works Department, as reported in the Tappan and Sparta article, Public Works staff paved and asphalted a pathway from the Sparta High School Castle Field parking lot to the tracks. They saved the Board of Education approximately half the cost of using an outside contractor and ultimately saving the taxpayers of Sparta money. The stairs at Ungerman Bridge leading to the library are poured. The railing vendor is building the rails, and they will be installed next week. Public Works crews will begin picking up leaf bags starting Monday, October 30th, as part of the annual residential leaf bag collection. Craft bags are available at the Sparta Library, Department of Public Works Building, and local retail stores. The Utility Department would like to thank those who have already handed in the samples from residential water for the residential water system as they continue with the state mandated lead and copper testing. Over 400 regulation samples have been taken since the last council meeting. They are finishing the last few samples from the Lake Mohawk system and will start handing out bottles for the Highland system. Upgrades have begun to the bulk water station in order to supply water to the bulk customers more effectively and continue to protect our water system. Utility staff have made many repairs on curb stops, valve stops, and valve bases, and the recent paving list, and now have continued to work in the areas before the cold weather sets in. Hydrant flushing will start soon. Please be on the lookout for advertisements specifying start dates. If you notice hydrant flushing in your area, check to make sure there is no discoloration water before doing laundry. Cold weather reminder, please make sure that your water meters are in the heated location. Turn on heated duct tape if you have any installed. Keep an eye on the weather, and we recommend turning off any hose bibs that are not frost-free. Frostbite type. Once the weather starts dropping below freezing at night, protect your plumbing and reduce the potential of costly leaks to be frozen in cracked pipes. Construction department, year-to-date, the department has issued 1,455 permits and performed a total of 4,145 inspections across the subcode technicals and continues to accept administrative processing of lead inspections upon request. Parks and Recreation, as a reminder, Trunk or Treat Halloween fun event at Station Park. That's on Friday, October 27th. Registration ends this Friday, October 13th. Please visit sparta.org for any additional information, anything reported above. Now I'm going to ask Chief McCarrick to read the police report for this portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Interim Manager Rome. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Our department has started the process to become reaccredited by the New Jersey State Chiefs Police Association. The accreditation is a progressive and time-proven method of assisting law enforcement agencies to calculate and improve their overall performance. Our agency will conduct a thorough self-analysis to determine how existing operations are or can be improved to meet the standards and objectives set forth by the New Jersey State Chiefs Association. Once the evaluations are complete and procedures are in place, a team of trained independent assessors will verify the applicabilities, standards that have been successfully implemented. As an agency, we are looking forward to working with Lexipol during this process. As the mayor had stated, it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Over the past 5 years, 2018 to 2022, our officers have investigated on average 66 domestic violence complaints per year. The Sparta Police Department has been and will continue to investigate acts of domestic violence, assist victims with the proper resources, and arrest actors who commit acts of domestic violence. We want to emphasize to our community that if someone is in need of domestic violence assistance, we will assist immediately. We work closely with our local county victim witness advocacy, DAISY, and the Center for Prevention and Counseling will also provide several resources for assistance. I want to say thank you to the library for hosting the Coffee with the Cop this past Wednesday, October 4th. It was a good event. We saw a lot of people come out, and it was nice to speak with everybody. And just a reminder to our community, this Friday, October 13th, we are hosting our annual Hanging with Heroes event at the Sparta VFW, where our police, fire, EMS, DPW, and our local veterans will be available, along with police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, trucks from the DPW, games, ice cream, food, and giveaways. So we hope to see everybody there. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Well, and just before we move forward, not that our meetings aren't super excited, but the young lady who just got the proclamation, I feel like you have to stay. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Usually after the proclamations, we let everybody go, so you don't have to sit through the whole meeting. You're welcome to, but you don't feel like you have to. Don't feel bad. You'll regret that you stayed.
I can attest she's been working since 7:30 this morning.
Oh, boy.
At a Chamber of Commerce meeting, so she's
Excellent.
putting in just another 12-hour day.
Nice.
Not trying to kick you out. I appreciate that you came, but I just didn't want you to feel like you had to stay for the
Thanks.
whole meeting.
But thanks for being here. Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know also, just so everyone knows, on our website, on our township website, we do have the information for Daisy listed underneath our crisis services. So if you go to spartanj.org, there is a self-services crisis page, and on it is a whole listing, and Daisy is right at the top. So if anybody needs services or you know someone that does, another place that you can find the number is on our website.
Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to accept the manager's report that was just presented?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? Right, the manager's report has been approved. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public for any comments for any items that are not on the agenda. And please be mindful, we have a 3-minute speaking limit. So any items that are not on the agenda? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the dais. Will the Deputy Mayor, will you please read the expenditures for October 10, 2023?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve bill list totals by fund dated October 10th, 2023, and the grand total amount of $818,926.52.
Excellent. Thank you. May I have a second then, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the expenditures?
I do have a couple questions. First one is actually on page 1. It's assurance consulting for $3,262. I know who they are. Looks like it's hitting the account for hospital, major medical, and prescription. Any thoughts on why it would hit there?
Because he does help us consult on some of the issues through the health department for medical stuff. So there is some money allotted within that budget so that his consulting on that would help us.
Is that, okay, I assumed incorrectly, I guess, that account was for actual medical bills, hospital made medical.
Well, yeah, the insurance, the bill, basically the insurance, it's not actually bills, it's for payment of our medical insurance.
And because he's supporting that function,
Yeah.
somebody gets booked there.
Also out of that would be any wellness programs or anything else all come under that category.
Okay. Okay, thanks. The second question is page 3, farm side landscape. So there's a few bills here all clumped together, and they all relate to the new White Lake Field, the White Lake Field project.
It's probably for the spraying and treating of the grounds.
Yeah, so it's 12,426 and change. Specifically, though, Sam, my question is that one of them is for grounds treatment, and one of them is for application on undeveloped land at White Lake Field. So that's over the aquifer. I think you know where I'm going with this. So do we know what they're applying and spraying to the fields in terms of chemicals, especially for undeveloped lands? I guess that means the tree area?
Probably just to keep down the growth of any weeds and stuff that would be dangerous to the, like poison ivy, whatever. I mean, there's that, but it is a park as well, so we have to control the growth of weeds that would give people
Also,
poison
ticks.
ivy or ticks or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that would probably apply to the field area, right? So I'm really curious about the undeveloped land, why we're spraying or doing anything to,
Well, again, it's probably for weed control and ticks, and even though it's not developed, it's still usable land where people walk their dogs and,
okay. I guess, is there a way we can check with Pharmacide to make sure that they're doing this in the proper way?
I won't check with farm side, we'll check with, the building and grounds manager.
Well,
I
I think,
can offer
it
that.
sounds like the vendor's doing it. We're paying the vendor, right?
I can
We're
offer that.
hiring-
Day-to-day operations.
I can offer that if it's a commercial vendor, they have to have a commercial pesticide license, and
Yeah.
they have to, they need to know,
Right.
they'll know what they can and cannot do in
And
areas as part of the
unfortunately,
license.
We lost our
accreditation.
licensed individual in-house when he retired. Mr.
Jerry.
Yonkers had a lot of those licenses.
Yeah.
So now we have to hire an outside person to do it.
All right. So I guess what I'm hearing is we feel comfortable that, Dan, you're saying that they are cognizant of the area, right? And what it's over.
And actually, many times, spraying is preferable to other forms of weed control and pest control. Just because it's sprayed doesn't mean it's any other noxiousity or.
Well, yeah, one says grounds treatment, one says applications. I don't know. Sprays or, yeah. Okay. Bless you. Okay, that was all I had.
Thank you. Any other questions on the bill list? All right, all those in favor of approving the bill list, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, the expenditures are approved. We have one ordinance to introduce, and that is ordinance 2320. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-20?
Bond ordinance appropriating $2,500,000 and authorizing the issuance of $2,380,000 bonds or notes of the township for various water utility system improvements or proposed authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Sparta in the County of Sussex, New Jersey.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 23-20 as read?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on it? Again, we won't deliberate too much on the merits of the ordinance at this time.
Yeah,
Introduction.
could we have a
There's no discussion.
conversation around what this represents? I thought we were going to have that, to understand how this came about, the context, and some of the details.
We do have an addendum that went with that. You should have it in a package today. It looks like
Oh.
this.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
Again, most of this is repairs that need to be done to the water system. Upgrading, I mean, we do have a new supervisor of the water department. Has brought a lot of these things to light that weren't brought to light before. It's water line replacement. A lot of our water lines need to be replaced badly. Some of them are more than 40 years old. They are copper-based pipes that are no longer, you just should no longer use. So it's replacing those mains. It's the painting of water tanks. To paint one water tank usually runs you in a neighborhood of 450 to 600,000. These, depending on the size of the tank. A lot of it now, when they actually paint these tanks, is they have to be encapsulated so that none of the spray goes out. And so it's just a lot of stuff that needs to be caught up. One of the things we're actually in the process of replacing as into most of the well houses and pump stations and stuff like that, basically, over the years, we've had all telephone line. So to tell us that whether their tank level is low or we got a problem at the tank, it's all gone through telephone line alarms. As we've lost those lines over the years from trees falling down and stuff like that, we're going to be replacing all of that stuff with cellular service so that we no longer have the issue of possibly taking a tank off the line because the tree fell down and took out the telephone line. So that'll be an upgrade. It also will make a lot quicker and liver information for stuff to be brought online about the water system. So there's quite a few, but it's stuff that needs to be done. The other thing of it is most of our bonds, we haven't actually gone out for a large bond sale in probably a 10-year period. So a lot of our bonds are being paid off. I mean, I've already paid off one issue this year. The second issue will be paid off next week. So we're down to basically having a very low debt percentage. Like, I think probably under 0.10%. And
Amazing.
it is amazing, don't get me wrong, but I look at having a healthy amount of bonds almost like having a good credit score. I mean, you need credit in order to get credit. And the fact that we don't have a whole lot of bonds out there, we don't get a rating. And you need your rating. And our rating is fairly decent. And so I need to get some bonds on the books and keep some bonds there in order to keep our credit rating going good.
That's a good problem to have, that we really need to spend some money now.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, and a lot of the stuff that we've done over the last 10 to 12 years, a lot of it, we did as pay-as-you-go and paid cash and really didn't incur a whole lot of debt. Yeah, I'd take out a note, but usually had the note paid off within a 4 or 5 year period, so that it was pretty much all self-funding.
Back then, the interest rates were much lower also.
Yeah, well, that's it now, but I'm actually looking now, because the note sale we just did a couple weeks ago was about 4.5 million. I think it was the total, 4.55, somewhere in there. So I'm looking at possibly taking that and then taking this new one, adding it together to come up with a bond issue of about 7 million and hit the market. So I've been working with the financial advisor just to see when the right time is to hit the market, where it would be the most beneficial for us. So probably would like to have a bond sale sometime, within the next 6 months to a year.
Sam, can you talk, the big chunk in the beginning, it mentions decommissioning of well 6. Where is well 6, and is that just inactive now, or?
Yeah, I don't know exactly whether it was, whether it was a contamination problem or the well ran dry or whatever, but either way, we have to take what's there out. We got to make sure that it's properly capped, filled in, whatever. But, so that is mostly taking that off a line.
Okay. And also, there's a 326,000 for the technology, right? Communication and technology equipment.
Right, that is basically a whole new, SCADA system to monitor all of the wells, the pumps. So we'll be taking it more over to a computerized thing than hard telephone lines. So
It's important to know these systems are not on the web because they need to be sheltered from anybody being able to hack it. So
Right,
they're more sophisticated and off the web and secured.
Each pump station has an alarm to make sure that it's, if it's not functioning properly, we get an alarm. The tanks all have the level alarms, so there's a lot that, like I say, sometimes we have to run 2 or 3 pair of telephone line to each tank or to each pump station. So we're trying to get rid of all of the copper and make it all fiber.
But last question is part C. It's improvement of the Germany Flats garage. I'm sure it's more than it sounds like, but it's 207,000. Can you share more about what that entails?
There's, the garage there now is just basically more like a pavilion, more or less, almost. And they're just trying to get it enclosed in and stuff so that all the, the equipment can be properly housed, the loader, unfortunately, like I say, DPW has a place to put all of their equipment that keeps it out of the elements, but when the Germany Flats facility was built, was just basically a pump station for all intents and purposes. It had an office, it had the different things in there, but there was really no place for them to house the equipment properly and keep it, out of the elements.
So the 200,000, is that a new garage then, a new facility, or?
Be like a pole barn, I believe is what it is. That's the feeling I got from talking with them, that it's be just basically like a pole barn, and so they get stuff in and out of the elements.
Okay. And who would do this work? I mean, various vendors, is that what we're thinking, or?
We would probably
internally?
have to hire vendors in, obviously, and stuff like that. I mean, not to say our guys probably couldn't do one, but you're better off getting somebody in there that does it all the time.
Yeah, and obviously for the well capping, of course, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
And along with that too, we still have to pull building permits and everything else as well, so.
Okay, all right, thanks. Any other questions on introduction of ordinance 2320? All right, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Trurello.
Yes, the ordinance 2320 is introduced. At this time, we have no ordinances up for hearing. We do have 6 resolutions on the agenda. At this time, I'll open it up to the public for any comments or questions about resolutions 9-1 through 9-6. And again, please be mindful of our 3-minute time limit. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway. I missed the last session. I stepped out, just talked to the young lady that was leaving, and I'm sorry I missed the last session. I have a comment which is not related to these resolutions.
There's another public session at the end. Can you wait till then?
Okay, how about the resolution that you just passed, that you just voted in?
Well,
Can I speak about
the
that?
ordinance?
The bond offer?
no, there's no public comment on the ordinances, no, at this time. The public comment is only applies to when ordinances are heard during the hearing. This is the introduction, so there's no public comment during the introduction.
That'll be in 2 weeks.
So in 2 weeks' time, we'll have that. Thanks. Anyone else on resolutions 9-1 through 9-6? I'll take it back to the dais. Do I have a motion, or does anybody want me to carve out any resolutions 9-1 through 9-6?
I would carve out 9-6 and 9-4.
9-6, 9-4, and 9-6. Anyone else? Okay, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 9-1, 9-2, and 9-3?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions on 9-1 through 9-3? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? Okay, resolutions 9-1 through 9-3 are adopted. May I have a motion to approve resolution 9-4?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on 9-4?
Just a question on 9-4. The resolution is allowing for the final payment for White Lake Field, but it does not increase the amount that we budgeted for that field. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
It's clarification that we budgeted for it with the change orders added onto it. Right.
Yeah, this is not an additional
This is-
change order of
No.
$48,014.53. This is simply the last payment that falls within what we approved. Got it.
Yep.
Last and final, so this one we're signing off on it and it's ours.
And it's beautiful, by the way. I was just up there.
And we've done all the requisite inspections that we would be that we needed to do in order to make the final payment. Is that
Yes,
right? Yeah, we wouldn't have made the payment and authorized it if we hadn't done the final inspection yet.
Mr. Stoner is on top of that. He's been a very helpful participant.
I've been impressed. Okay, all those in favor of approving, or actually, any other questions on 9-4?
Not for me.
All right, all those in favor of approving Resolution 9-4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, 9-4 is approved. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-5?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments, questions on 9-5? All right, I do. So maybe for our attorney, does this complete our requirements for fulfilling the requests given to us?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions on 9-5?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to carve out 9.5, so I'm glad you did. What was the purpose of 9.5?
Well, actually, there are multiple purposes of 9.5. 9.5 incorporated some of the changes that were proposed back in October, November of 2022 with regard to clearly setting forth what the limitations were on the accrual of sick leave and also the accrual of vacation time. But it also incorporates a number of changes to the personnel policy manual that were recommended by the Joint Insurance Fund, our insurance carrier.
And in my understanding is that it was, the purpose of which is to get our sick leave policy in compliance with the state law. Is that right? Okay. And that we've done an individual assessment to determine that whether we've complied or not?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, to ensure there were no inappropriate payouts. That was done by the chief financial officer.
Yeah, and by inappropriate payouts, that would be a payout of sick leave that was not allowed by state law,
Correct.
which is, my understanding is that 15,000 if you were hired after 2010?
Yes, that's the cap.
Okay, and my understanding, we did an individual assessment to determine whether anyone who was hired after 2010 received a payment in excess of 15,000, and our determination was that they did not.
They didn't.
Okay, and so if people did get a payment of in excess of 15,000, that would be someone who was hired prior to the advent of the law, which became in effect in 2010, am I right?
Correct.
Okay. And I know the one remaining thing that the state needed was for us to pass this resolution. Is that your understanding of the last remaining
Confirm
thread?
Indeed, that these revisions were made to the personnel policy manual.
Okay. And my understanding is that we did provide the Office of State Controller, our corrective action policy, the contracts that would be subject to the corrective action policy back in October of 2022, or?
The corrective action plan was provided back in October of 2022.
Okay. And so and they've also had the opportunity to review the contracts to determine whether they are in compliance with the 2010 law?
Well, they've had the opportunity, but I don't believe they've completed their review.
Okay, so that review is ongoing?
That's correct.
Okay.
Once they receive this resolution, then I think they will probably complete the review. I mean, and at that point in time, everything was agreed upon, everything was done back in October, but unfortunately, the resolution never was passed at that time. So that's what basically has happened. They seen our plan, they said, okay, the plan is good, but you need to finish it off with a resolution, and the resolution was never done.
Okay. And from our end, we think the contracts that we've now entered into are compliant with the state law. And so it's just up to the comptroller to agree with us?
Yeah, and I would just point out that our collective bargaining agreements, in fact, are more aggressive than the state law and probably most aspects of the issue, because under our 5 collective bargaining agreements, 4 of them actually eliminated payments for unused sick leave upon retirement, but at different dates than what the 2010 law provided. So we've supplemented that language. We negotiated it with each of the collective bargaining agreements. Those contracts were presented to the council earlier this year, reviewed and approved by the council, approved by all of our collective bargaining units, and indeed have been implemented. So I do not anticipate any concerns whatsoever from the Office of the State Comptroller. And we certainly received cooperation from our collective bargaining units to ensure that the appropriate language was in each of our contracts, our most recent contracts.
Okay. And so even though that, we obviously entered into collective bargaining agreements after 2010, that may or may not have included the language that the state required, we've already done an assessment to determine whether we've made payments in violation of the state law and have determined that, no, we haven't.
Yeah, that's true. And again, it's not surprising because I don't think we have many employees who qualified for retirement even to this day who were hired after 2010. So we really didn't have any instances arise where we had employees retiring with only 13 or less years of service. But I imagine that is what Sam looked at and confirmed.
Okay. All right, I think that concludes all the questions that I have about the resolution and the reason for it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on Resolution 9-5? All right, all those in favor of approving Resolution 9-5, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, 9-5 is approved, and we can put that matter to bed finally. That's a good thing. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-6?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll
That-
second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on Resolution 9-6?
What's the purpose of this resolution?
Basically, every time you do a bond ordinance, that is a non-funded ordinance, you have to amend your capital budget. So basically, for doing that water ordinance, we did put a down payment down on it, but for the balance of the non-funded portion, we have to amend our capital budget. So that's this sheet here that,
Yeah, I lied, Dean. This goes with the 9-6, not the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on 9-6? Okay, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-6?
So moved?
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? I think I approved it twice, but that's okay. All right, Resolution 9-6 is approved. Any council liaison updates? I'll start with Councilwoman Quinn.
Just some updates from our side. So the Municipal Alliance, I reported last meeting that we are very excited to now be looking at expanding the scope and reach of our program to include different demographics within the town. We're very excited to now be including, for example, the veterans in our planning. We're looking at new programs through also not just, so yes, it's all prevention-based, but also through recreation and whatnot. A form went out to everyone. I sent it to members of council as well to get input. It's going to be discussed at our next Municipal Alliance meeting, and that's where we're going to be talking about the budget. So very excited. There's several different places the money comes from. So we still have our Chicada money that comes from the state. And then we will also have the money from the opioid settlement as well that comes into the township that will be used. And there's a whole guideline, a book of all the different things that you can use it for. And it's all relative to prevention or support for those that are in recovery. So
And it's a significant amount of money, right?
Well, we're not sure what the exact amount is going to be yet. The state won't know exactly what the amount is going to be, so I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to set an expectation that I do expect is going to change. Lisa Lombardo, who's our rep, did tell us. The other thing about these funds is what we saw from last year, and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, you get the money. So we're getting significantly less than a lot of other municipalities. It depends on a lot of different things. And the other problem is you get a little bit of money at a time. You get it, I think, as it's paid, if I understand correctly. So you get a couple thousand here and a couple thousand there. You don't get a big lump sum check from which you can then plan everything. So you have to wait to get it before you can plan anything against it, is my point, because it's not a guarantee. But we're hoping to get more information from the state on that. So that's exciting stuff. Parks and Recs, very, very busy right now, getting ready to send out a form there as well. We had our meeting. We've talked about a lot of different things. We're looking at a lot of infrastructure things right now, revisiting a lot of things, some new things that have come up, and also relooking at all the things that we were looking at in 2019 before COVID happened and everything in our whole world got shifted and reprioritized. So one of the things that that we're looking at right now is utilization of existing township spaces. So what can we do with these spaces? Do they have access? Are they just easements? We have a listing. The problem is some of the properties are properties that are backed up. They're landlocked, can't get to them. So we're trying to work through that list. Some of the things we're looking at, and we're going to be putting together, gathering input, and then putting together a plan of action, a recommendation, and prioritize. So what are some of the things that we could do for very limited money with a good benefit, and so on and so on. So we're working on putting together this prioritized list. One of the things that I will share that we are looking at now is, can we possibly, for a safety perspective and a great service to the community, and we were talking about this in 2019 as well, flood over by Station Park where the basketball courts are in the wintertime and have ice skating there. It's a lit facility. We can take advantage of it. So Jean was going to go follow up with Parks and Rec and DPW to see if, in fact, we could do that without harming the asphalt underneath. It's a perfect location. Nothing's going on. Plenty of parking, lit. So, and I think from a safety perspective, most moms would rather have the kids ice skating if they can on a basketball court with just a little bit of ice on it than taking their chances on one of the lakes. Not that that's bad, it's great, but, you know, the weather's been a little bit iffy, so looking at that. Also looking at space for a dog park, pickleball courts, some splash pads we talked about, upgrading playgrounds, all of this, trails, all of this is going to be in the upcoming report. We just had our first meeting to even talk about this. We'll be doing more research in the next coming months and ideation through input. So another form is being put together that will be going out. We're also pulling a lot of the data from the 2019, actually 2020 questionnaire that we did, quality of life questionnaire that we did through the planning board. So we have that data as well, and just kind of putting everything together. We're going to be putting together different subcommittees, so sports organizations and things of that nature, to try to really get input from as many places as we can. The planning board and zoning board will get that as well, to get new input. So we're really excited about it. It's a lot of work, but a lot of really great work. With that said, also at this time, I want to thank Ben Wright. He's been a member of the rec committee for quite some time, and he did submit his letter of resignation due to conflicts that he has with running around with his kids and trying to manage, obviously, full-time work. We did have another applicant who I would like to nominate to put on the Parks and Rec Committee. Her name is Lauren Volpe. The great news is we're trying to make sure that we have on this advisory committee all, a great cross-section of demographics across the whole town. The great fit with Lauren is she has two very small children. She's also very active in the community. She takes advantage of adult recreational programs as well. She's really a perfect fit. So I wanted to nominate her this evening to become a member of the Parks and Rec, taking Ben Wright's position. So I'm going to formally make that motion.
I'll second.
What is that? We're good?
Bat signal.
Okay, we're good? Okay. So we have a nomination and a second.
Any questions or comments on the nomination of Lauren Volpe for Recreation
And
Committee?
she put in through the portal, is that right?
Yes.
I did see that,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
So is that?
The motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, welcome, Lauren.
Okay, great. Other than that, those are the updates I have right now.
I have a question?
Sure.
Has there been any discussion? I had brought up the fact that some of the baseball umpires had said to our parents during one of the baseball nights that the cricket pad they had put up was a safety hazard. And I know some of the parents complained the kids were getting almost hit in the face as the balls were bouncing off of it.
Okay.
Because obviously it's not the same as the rest of the grass on that field. And I brought that concern up, and I noticed it's still there.
It's still there now?
Yeah.
Right.
And the parents were very upset, especially when the referees are making the comments to them that that's ridiculous that it's there. Our only full-size lit baseball field.
So I would definitely take that up with,
Thank you.
I thought that was,
I thought it was addressed too, but
Yeah.
apparently not.
the other thing that is a big priority list as well, just so everyone is aware, we understand that there's a definite need for storage facilities down at the fields. Some of the older facilities, literally the wood, they've been there so long, the wood crumbled, like it literally just fell apart, so they were removed. So that's something else that is being.
Should be on your plan, right, on that plan?
Yeah, so that's all I have for liaison reports.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hertzberg?
I have none.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark?
Yes, thank you. First, we had our first meeting of the Revolutionary 250 Committee, which again is to celebrate the country's 250th anniversary, but also with the New Jersey and Sparta flair. I am very happy with the folks that, were gracious enough to sign up for it. We have two teachers from the middle school who are going to be very helpful with implementing some of the curriculum, which will involve, the Revolutionary period, which they already teach anyway. And they will also be providing, kind of hands-on learning experiences for the children. We also have someone who lives actually in a Revolutionary era house in Sparta, who has done a lot of work with various historical committees throughout the state. So we're really blessed to have him. A lot of great ideas. One thing he did present was that through the Rev 250 committee from the state, there is funding available up to, I think, about $25,000. And so I think what, I would suggest is that we, through our, vendor that we use, I think it's Millennium, find out what that is and definitely apply. I think the deadline's November 17th. But I think that the resources that we would use for that funding include a lot of activities, a lot of, various, there's a lot of ideas about how to celebrate our country's history, particularly with the Sparta flair. And the benefit that we have of having some historians is that, they were able to kind of explain to us the role that this area played in the Revolutionary era history. We were more an area for skirmishes, although there were a lot of battles in New Jersey. This area didn't see as many, but there are, we have remnants of that period throughout the township, including old kilns and things that were used. So it's a way to kind of get people to be engaged with this history in a real tangible way, a way that they can touch, feel, smell, and we can bring that to life. And so we have a lot of good ideas, and now it's just a matter of figuring out what those are and executing them. And I think that, there are some towns that are there's some states that are, kind of behind. In fact, I think New York hasn't done much, surprisingly, even though it was, played a critical role in the revolutionary period. So that's the Rev 250. We'll be meeting probably every 2 months or so, and start getting, and we'll announce. And we have someone who has a public relations background on the committee who is going to help us in how to get the word out. I would like to add to the rec committee, we are going to get a presentation at our next meeting by Mr. Landon Tenieri. People may remember that name. It's someone that we appointed to the zoning board. He's now a freshman at Sussex Community College, former Sparta High School. But he's been working very hard with trying to improve the rail trails that we have throughout Sussex County. And what he's done in that regard is he's worked with the executive director of the Hardiston Historical, which is, people may know who Bill Turin is. If you've ever read a book about Sussex County or even Sparta, he wrote it. But they have put together kind of a master plan and we have about 22 miles of the old DL and W line, 4 miles of which goes through Sparta. And so the idea is to get that program, I think it's been started and stopped over many years, but to get that back up to speed, they've already done a presentation at the Sussex County for the commissioners, and he's going to give kind of an abbreviated version of that presentation to the rec committee, because I think improving those 4 miles of trails that go through Sparta will be one of the items that I hope makes it on the action plan, and he's a great resource to find out, what that involves, how much it costs, et cetera. And another thing with the rec committee, among the items that, Councilwoman Quinn listed, we also want to improve the trails at Station Park, which we think is what I call the low-hanging fruit, because there's trails that are already there. They just need to be kind of clear-cut a little bit, and then probably some, wood chips or something put down so we can improve the walking trails in that area. And that also allows for the Sparta High School cross-country team to have their own home course, because I think I've mentioned before, they can start having home meets, and right now they're traveling 45 minutes for any home meet. And they now have, starting next year, will be able to hold home meets if they have a course to do so. So I'd like to see that we can provide that to them. And also, I failed to mention the last time, thankfully, that Mayor Chiarello had a prior commitment, so I had to attend the mayor's dinner, which happens every quarter for all the various mayors in Sussex County. And it was actually, and we had a presentation by the Shared Services Department of the state, and they gave a presentation about shared services and the costs that you can save through that. It was also great to hear from other mayors about kind of the issues that they're going through. I learned a lot about our fire departments and, the cost that they have and the training. And so it was actually a very, useful. And so I thank you for missing out on that and bringing the JV team to the dinner. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Councilman Moretti?
Yep, sure. First, I'd like to start, Councilwoman Quinn, if you have a chance that that report you mentioned, if you can share it with the council, I'd love to see it. A couple years ago, you said there was a quality of life survey that went out. That'd be great to
In
see.
2020, it was posted on the website, so
Okay.
I will get it to you.
Okay, thank you. So a couple updates from the Environmental Commission, continuing to review different planning board applications. The most recent was 689 Diamond Chip Realty, Part 2, I believe, not Part 1, took a couple meetings. Secondly, open space plan is proceeding, exploring options. One proposal came in. We're evaluating grant opportunities, including the Highlands Council, part of NJDEP. I believe Michelle, Sam has touched base with you, and I think the next step might be for you to connect with Highlands Council regarding the grant. I think there's a forum. I'm not sure if Corey's involved in that. Sound familiar?
A grant for what?
The grant for the Highlands Council?
Yeah, for the open
For
space.
the open space
land.
plan.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have to be involved.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds like, okay. Third is the Green Business Initiative. So this is tied to a grant that the Environmental Commission was awarded earlier this year that I shared, and it's based on New Jersey Sustainable Business Registry. The Green Business Initiative is sponsored by New Jersey Business and Industry Association, by the Board of Public Utilities, Clean Energy Department, by Rutgers, by Sustainable Jersey. It's a free, no-cost opportunity for businesses to recognize themselves and promote their sustainable practices. When they meet a handful of different sustainable practices, ranging from waste reduction, energy efficiency, transportation, water, environmental restoration, green building design, emergency preparedness, et cetera. They then can become part of the Sustainable Business Registry, promote their business, use the logo. They can also have access to no-cost expert counseling on energy conservation, waste reduction, pollution prevention, et cetera. And they can then position themselves as a sustainable business. So a couple of notes on that. One, Josh, maybe we can sync up on the Business Development Committee, and maybe at some future meeting, someone from DC can come in and share a mini presentation on that for those business members. Sure. I'm going to be going to the Chamber of Commerce meeting for Sparta next week with the Environmental Commission Chairwoman, just to give a few words on this to those members as well. So more to come on that. Again, it's no cost to businesses, and if they can show that they're sustainable, they can then promote themselves and gain access to new customers. Let's see, fourth is the Environmental Commission is holding their a community cleanup. So it's going to be on Saturday, October 14th. It's going to be at Blue Heron at the interchange over there in the parking lot from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Again, it's on October 14th, Saturday. Open to anyone who would like to come and volunteer. They'll have supplies. Just bring boots, of course, and gloves. Actually, they may have gloves too, but they'll have bags and all that. If you'd like to volunteer, you can pre-register. It's requested but not mandatory. If you want to just show up, you can as well. Again, 9 to 11 a.m. on the 14th. If you wanted to register, you can just send an email to the Environmental Commission email address, which is environmental@SpartaNJ. So that's again on the 14th. Fifth is that there are 3 openings for Environmental Commission roles right now. There were 2 recently added due to the ordinance change last meeting, and then 1 due to a recent vacancy that was announced. So you can apply in the Township website, go to the volunteer forms, fill it out, and just select Environmental Commission. And then lastly, this one's a little awkward. Environmental Commission Chairwoman made sure I would include this. So I'm receiving an Environmental Leadership Award. It's the 2023 Municipal Leadership Award from ANJEC, the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions. Every year, several of those are handed out, and the EC apparently submitted a nomination for me and a little write-up without my knowledge, so I recently found out that I'll be getting that award. And that concludes my report.
And you stole my thunder too, but
Thanks.
anyway, you said it better than I could. I will be laconic and say I have got no updates for Council Liaison that hasn't already been said. In terms of unfinished business, we have none to bring to the table tonight. And for new business, before I ask members of the council if any new business, I'd like to start now with addressing short-term rentals. similar to a discussion that we had about food trucks. We have some policy decisions to make on short-term rentals. And I want to get everybody's input on that. And we can do so right now or offline if you want to send me an email or a phone call if you want to hear something personally. But in any case, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Ryan, I believe that currently, before I say something, what is the current disposition of the status of short-term rentals in our municipality right now?
Well, I would say ambiguous to some extent. However, the attorney for our zoning board feels that indeed they are currently prohibited under our ordinance, and that any individual who wanted to utilize their dwelling for a short-term rental would be required to make an application to the zoning board for a use permit. So that's the interpretation coming from counsel for the zoning board, and I believe our zoning officer has passed that on to you and to council. But other than that, we do not have a dispositive ordinance that strictly prohibits short-term rentals, nor do we have a clear ordinance that regulates short-term rentals. And by that, I mean if you wanted to allow them under certain circumstances whereby they would be required to register and meet other regulations.
And thank you for letting me put you on the spot, and thank you for offering that. So the decision, so if I can summarize that, our current state and our ordinance, our township ordinances are let's say vague, but in all we feel that right now they are not permitted unless they are properly registered as such. And what we're being asked for by our zoning department is to provide more clarity on whether or not, as a municipality, where we want to go with this. So I think the decision is, number one, is this something we're comfortable with? And number two, what the thresholds are. So how do we define a short-term rental? Is it under 1 month or under 30 days? Is it under 6 months? So I'll start with anybody who wants to start offering an opinion on. And actually, let me go first so I can break the ice. I have been a landlord for many years, and I know the challenges of renting. But short-term rentals make me personally uncomfortable. I know that Airbnb and Vrbo and other gig economy type of operations are almost ubiquitous in our society now. But in any case, having a dwelling that is not built or suited up and equipped for having a stranger stay in that place, and what happens if there's a fire, our exits clearly lit, things you would take for granted in a hotel or a bed and breakfast that has been set up for and inspected and has the proper facilities for safety, let alone zoned properly so that any activity that happens there doesn't disturb the neighbors. Taking that into a residential area and not having the setup for that makes me uncomfortable. So personally, I would be opposed to allowing any short-term rentals under 30 days in Sparta for all those reasons. And so my recommendation would be to craft an ordinance that would have a cap of 30, defining a short-term rentals under 30 days and having a prohibition on that.
Okay, I'll jump in. I don't have a problem with them in areas that are zoned commercial, residential, because you expect businesses, you can expect
Commercial
some
or
residential.
residential or
No,
both?
that are zoned for both. I
Okay.
agree. In residential only, I think people live in neighborhoods, they expect a certain privacy there. They don't expect people to be coming in and out. But I feel it's different when you're in a business and commercial zone, or commercial and residential.
That's fair.
That's all I have.
I can go next.
Yes, please.
So Yeah, I've struggled with this. I'm still struggling, so I'd like to hear what all of you think and even what the public thinks. But first of all, I would classify it as 2 to 30 days. I think overnights are, for me, that's just inviting, too much churn. I think there's cons and pros, right? So the cons to me are we protecting our residential character? Is it going to change? Noise, sanitation, some of the things that we've read about in some of these documents, overcrowding. Is it going to diminish? Is it going to be issues with loud parties and whatever it is? So there's all these issues. Then there's and safety. There's the benefit side possibly. And when I think of that, I think about in Sparta, our types of property, our types of homeowners, and the types of clientele they might attract, which I think we have to keep that in mind, which I mean that in a positive way. So, will it bring in dollars to local businesses and restaurants? It could. Tourism for us and for the county, sure. Could it attract and expose people that are future home buyers? It's very possible. Can they use Sparta as their home base for things like hiking and farms and fishing and skiing and golf and, lakes and whatever else, and have this be a little hub that they can use for a weekend or a week away under the right situations? I mean, those are all benefits that I'm trying to keep in my head too. And I think some of the examples we've seen that Attorney Ryan put together from other towns kind of show that there is maybe a pathway, if we're willing, to put controls around it. So I'm just reading these for examples, some of the ones I highlighted. Obviously, liability insurance of a certain amount. Single-family residences, so don't allow it in other larger places. Name, address, all the contact information for the owners. They have to register in advance. They have to have a 24-hour contact number. They have to have a certificate of occupancy once a year. So of course, not saying we do that for free, but so the property that it's registered and there's the proper codes are in place. So there's different ways and parameters that perhaps we can structure this. They have to show that for example, that the septic can handle, if they have one bedroom, they're going to use this for a two, that the septic, of course, needs to match that there's enough parking. And I wouldn't want to see this where it's a single-family house and they're allowing, 15 people over and it's going to overload. I'm just thinking of maybe one or two or maybe up to 4 guests. So I'm thinking of those as the bigger picture as we think of this. There's pros and cons the way out. So I'll just stop there and leave that out there.
You said something I was going to come back to. Oh, so at the point of, when somebody registers that says, I want to offer my home as a short-term rental or be on the market in one of these organizations for short-term rental, we will identify a standard that they need to meet in order for us to accept that registration as a short-term rental. And you mentioned a couple of things, having adequate septic for the guest limit, parking for the guest limit. To be accepted for short-term rental, you probably need to meet ADA standards, so wheelchair accessible. Doesn't have to have lighting for fire escapes, because when you're on a fire, all you see is smoke. You should know more than I do about that, but I think the standard for a rental should be higher than a personal home. So I imagine that all those things would come with, when I'm registering my home for a short-term rental, I have to meet a higher standard than I would otherwise if I were just a regular occupant. Is that true, or is that, or you can probably say it's up to the council, right? So I'm putting words in your mouth to put back at me.
Very broad discretion in terms of what type of regulations you would, as was indicated already, you can prohibit it completely, or you can impose a broad range of regulations.
And so someone smarter than me, with more knowledge of what would be safety and ADA and other requirements, would have to come with a recommendation of what the standard should be.
Well, they don't do that across the country.
Understood?
So, although I think that's obviously an option if you want to regulate it that way, but I think that's That's what hurts New Jersey in a business aspect, is we tend to overregulate everything here.
Right. And again, personally, I would, my personal feeling is that I would not allow these. So if we were to allow it, I would personally want them to meet a higher standard for safety, ADA compliance, those things. Again, just offering my opinion. Anyone else?
So I am also not a fan of these in residential neighborhoods. I think there's a place for everything, but I don't think what you're basically doing is running a commercial business in a residential zone, and I do not agree with this at all. I don't think it's fair to the people in the neighborhood to have small children with people turning over 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is, every time you open the door. And I have to say, we've been getting residents to reach out to us for quite some time about this. And originally, it was more focused around the lakes. We do have 24 bodies of water here. It was around some of the larger lakes, but now it's becoming all over the place. So the issue is people are renting out their homes. They're not in places you may suspect. They're in residential areas, and they're handing out beach tags. So now people are just going to the beaches, and these are private beaches that residents are paying for. So now you have strangers at the beaches, and then they're bringing all their friends because it's an Airbnb. So now it's a party. So I don't agree with these in residential neighborhoods. I think residential neighborhoods should not be for commercial use. So that's my opinion on that. And I am not, obviously, good points about septic and all that, but I gotta say, I'm less worried about that than I am about protecting the safety of our residents. That's my number one priority. That's why I don't think these things fit here, personally. I also understand that we have certain spaces because of our landscape where these should be fine. So in other words, we have campsites in Sparta. That's what a campsite is. You're not gonna rent a campsite for a year. You know, you're gonna come go fishing, and that's fine. They're not in residential zones. I don't believe all of them. We do have a bed and breakfast in town right now. I don't know what the status of it is right now, but we do have a facility that is properly, it's in a space by itself, it's not in a neighborhood, it's set apart, it's clear what it is, and I think that is the use for a quote-unquote short-term rental. Bed and breakfast, maybe a campsite, but absolutely not in a residential zone. So I respectfully think that we should really look at this and maybe say, we don't, if somebody is treated like a variance. If somebody is in a residential zone, but it's 3 miles away from everybody else, maybe they apply for like a variance like the planning board does. But in my opinion, we're better off to just say no, except in these areas, you know, where there's a campsite, where there's bed and breakfast, it's commercial, whatever. And just say no to it anywhere there's in a residential zone. But give people the option, again, treat it like a variance. So that's my opinion. My opinion is no. Not in a residential zone.
I wonder if there's a way, when you were describing that, I was thinking of the volume per year. And I don't, administratively, I have no idea how that can happen, but you know, if we say you're registering once a year, you can do this for, 4 times or 2 times or 6 times. You can't do this every weekend all year long. Or you
Well,
can't do this every month, so that, that would make it really like a
Let me
motel.
be clear too, I don't think ever in this town, except for a campsite or a bed and breakfast, I don't think in any residence anywhere, you should be every 2 days turning over the people in your,
Yeah, I agree totally.
I just don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Especially in these times, no way.
That's just totally a business. And you're trying to, that to me is skirting around the zoning laws in that case.
But like I said, if someone is in a residential area, but they have 10 miles of property or 10 acres of property, then if that's really what they want to do, then they're gonna have to go to the planning board, convert whatever it is, just like any other business would need a variance, and they could take it up there. But I think as a township overall, it's better to be conservative in this regard and watch out for everybody's safety than not.
I want to build on something you said because it reminded me of one of the things was important to me with the food truck ordinance was I wanted to protect our brick and mortar restaurants that people invest a lot of time and money in. Similar to this, we did identify there may or may not be one. I'm not sure if it's still in operation. I think it is, but it's not operation. But protecting a brick and mortar place a bed and breakfast in Sparta, which I think would be a business we would all enjoy having. If short-term rentals were prevalent in the town, I think that would dissuade anybody from starting a bed and breakfast, which probably is a business we would enjoy rather than have a number of short-term rentals that turn over frequently. And so I think that would compete with a business that we would like to attract in Sparta. And again, let me remind everybody, I think these are healthy discussions, and I appreciate hearing from everybody's opinion, and that's why maybe it's just me, but I enjoy doing this.
So Dan, can I add something on to what I
Please,
said?
yes.
Because it wouldn't be fair for me not to.
Mhm.
I do think if somebody wants to rent their home for a year or, long-term
Well, these are short-term
rentals.
rentals, but go ahead.
Right, so I'm just going on record as saying right now, I don't want to hear tomorrow, I'm against every single kind of rental there is. I'm against short-term rentals.
So we have to define short-term rental. I think we
Right,
said
so I would
it's 30 days is usually what what a lot of the other municipalities are doing.
So I would even venture we go further than 30 days. That's my opinion. 30 days is a season. We're a big community. I think that would be my recommendation, would maybe be going to like 6 months.
I think you might run into trouble when you get into a couple of months because a lot of times somebody just might need while you're in school
Well,
type of
that's
thing.
why we have
But
Tom.
that's a point.
I mean, some communities have said no altogether. They just said no. I mean,
A lot
nothing.
of places do corporate rentals too, where like traveling nurses and people come in, they rent it.
Traveling nurses or thing.
But
yeah.
is that at Airbnbs or is that more at hotels or like
no,
bed
no.
and breakfasts?
No, it's homes. They rent people's homes. Like somebody rents it.
Oh, so
Right.
it's like an
So
Airbnb.
I go to Florida.
No, for
I've
like
got
months.
I'm away for 4 months. I'm in Florida,
Right.
and I have a nurse that comes in as traveling nurse, as Councilman Hertzberg said. And I need to be at the hospital in Denville for a couple of months because that's my rotation, or that's where I'm needed. I need a place to stay for a couple of months, and people can make those arrangements for a couple of months to
So
stay.
what is that normally? 2 months, 3 months? What do you think?
I don't know.
It
I don't know. I
varies.
just know.
I mean, what's reasonable?
As I said, typically when I rented, and I many times it's usually a year, but I have had people ask me for just 6 months because I had people come in from Florida that was doing a job in this area and just needed a place to stay while the job is here. It really varies. It's all over the place, but so we do have an option. As I said, most towns define short-term rentals as 30 days. We could go longer or shorter if we wanted to, but
I think if you're trying to discourage Airbnbs and like short-term rentals, I think 30 days discourages it.
30 days?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the sweet spot there.
We could always go back. I mean, we could start with 30 days, and if it's still problematic, we could go back.
Sure.
We can always relook at it, and I think right now, we have nothing.
Right. We do
I
have
mean, we
nothing
have
right
nothing
now.
in place right now, so.
Well, Tom said the zoning office.
Well, the
Well, we are getting,
attorney for the zoning board
Is happening.
views it as a point that was made by, I didn't realize, I don't recall who, but essentially that it's a commercial practice within a residential zone.
And that's exactly what I think it is, so. I don't think we should be able to do that. All right, well, so where
Could we
where
open
are
it
we
up
now?
to the public?
Well, I haven't, if it's okay, I'd like to
Please.
add what I think, which is one, do we need an ordinance? Yes, it sounds like it's the wild, wild west, and we don't have, we have our zoning officers who are having to go in and, issue citations, and so there's not clarity around that. So yes, we do need an ordinance. What the parameters of that ordinance will be, we'll have to hash out. I'll also say, I think we need, in Sussex County in particular, we need accommodations for people who want to visit Sussex County and avail themselves of all that we have to offer. I think we had a presentation a couple months ago. Tourism is a huge economic generator for this area. But, a rate limiter of that is the accommodations that we can provide. And, you can take a look around, and there's not a lot of hotels in Sussex County. There's not a lot of places for people to stay. And so providing that opportunity for people, you can go and you can build a hotel, but that comes with all kinds of other issues. I think that, short-term rentals, allowing people to use their property, to open that up to people who, to visit. I agree, I do not want to transform a residential neighborhood where people have lived year-round into, an endless cycle of people coming in and out. I know that this has happened in the Pocono regions where towns have kind of opened the floodgates, and so people who have lived in this neighborhood for years and years, all of a sudden have people cycling in every weekend, taking up their pools, and so the accommodations that they had come accustomed to have now been dramatically changed. So I do think we need to safeguard that. I think that I would be in favor of allowing this, but I think it would have to be, I agree with Councilwoman Quinn that, it can't be for, 2 days at a time. I would probably, I'll see. I think that we have to look to it, but I think there is a need for accommodations in this area for people who want to visit, particularly if we want to drive the economic engine that I think exists here for tourism, because if we can rely on that type of revenue, I think that then that may, limit the need that we may have for other types of developments that we don't like, right? Because now we're just taking a pre-existing house that's already there and allowing it to function as accommodations as opposed to, building a hotel or something like that. So I think there's a need for it here, but we have to do it smart, and we have to do it in a way that protects the residential character of our area. But again, I do think there is a demand for it, and I do think we do need, an ordinance that makes it clear what the parameters are of it. I think with respect to, putting on a lot of different conditions, you essentially will outlaw these if you make it ADA compliant, if you make it so cost prohibitive for someone who wants to do this, then, we can do that. We can do it, we can either prohibit it or we can make it so cost prohibitive that it won't exist anyway. So, but I think more study needs to be done about towns that have done this, what has been the effect on those towns. But I do want to make sure that we don't disrupt neighborhoods and people who have come to expect to live in a residential area, that all of a sudden it's now, swarming with, all kinds of people who may be just fine, but, we all, if you're just away for a weekend, you tend to treat the property, less, with less care than someone who owns the property. So in any event, I'm glad we're having this discussion. I look forward to learning more about it and figuring out, but I think I am, for right now, I would like us to figure out a way to do this so that, people can come to Sparta, have a place to stay if they need to, because I think right now they really don't. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you for offering that. Anyone else want anything to offer before we close this discussion?
I mean, I know all of us have clear thinking on this, and we're evolving that too. I would love to get other input, though, like from the public at some point, because this
Yeah.
is just five of us. We know, we have good rationale for our thinking, but I would love to hear from a variety of other folks too.
Yeah, I do too. And we do have an open to the public on the agenda next after new business, where we can solicit. This did appear on the agenda that was posted, so the public did have notice that this discussion was going to take place.
Okay.
I'll also maybe make a final comment and come back to ADA a couple of times, having spent a little bit of time in a wheelchair and having had some issues walking for a while. I do recognize that being disabled in a world of able-bodied people that are catering toward able-bodied people can be a bummer sometimes. And so that's something I'm just personally mindful of. Okay. So what we will do is to consolidate what I think we heard, which was, we kind of heard, it did gel around a few topics, but we'll posit or put forward an ordinance, and then we can mark it up from there. So I think we have a good starting point. So thank you, everybody.
So do you want us to send you all of our?
Yeah, if you have other comments, or if you want to resend what we talked about, or make additional comments, you can please email them to me.
Email them?
Yep.
Okay, I'll send them over.
Thank you.
And would you like me, my office, to prepare a draft ordinance?
Let's
or-
wait until we consolidate some of the thinking, and then we have a good starting point there, and then we can do this all over again after it's introduced.
Okay.
All right, so any new business or new/old business? Start with Councilman Blumetti.
No, none.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark.
No.
Thank you. Councilman Hertzberg.
No.
Thank you. Councilwoman Quinn.
You know I do. I always do.
Go for it.
So I want to follow back up with the Verizon issue that I've been bringing up in the last couple of meetings. I understand that we probably don't have all that much control, but now the service is denigrated to the point where if you are driving down 517, if you go near Alpine School, if you go near Reverend Brown, any of them, it's not even a half a bar. It comes up and says SOS only, no service. And I've been getting complaints about this. I've been coming here and talking about this is a public service. This is a public safety problem. This is not just whatever, but.
It's a capitalism problem. If people don't like Verizon, get a different service.
No, but I'm just saying, it never used to be that bad, so something changed. So what I'm saying is, I had just asked, could somebody reach out to Verizon and just say, hey, by the way, like, do they even know there's a problem? Maybe they don't even know there's a problem. I don't know. But I'm to the point where I think I'm just gonna reach out to the BPU and maybe take my chances and see. I don't know how to escalate it, but we have to do something. We have 2 schools full of teachers over there that, and we have entire neighborhoods. We have Westgate all the way down, all around there. There is literally no service.
I don't think BPU does anything. It's not a public utility. Cell service isn't considered a public utility.
So,
There's so much overlap. They all cover each other's spaces, right? So not one gets designated as a public utility. So it's like, it's a free market.
so do we have a contact person? They rent space on our water towers. Somebody's paying that bill. Do we have a contact at Verizon somewhere?
I could see if I can find a number, but it's probably not gonna get you where you wanna go.
Well, where can we go? There's got to be somebody that we can call at Verizon to say, hey, by the way, do you know this is a problem? And is there anything that you could do to help us?
I'm sure there's a regional office that.
I mean, I'm just saying, I think it's worth it for us to try. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm just saying, I have noticed, and I've gotten phone calls about it as well, that when you drive down that road, it just goes completely dead to SOS only. You can't even do anything. You lose everything.
It's
So,
always been like that on West Mountain, so I guess I'm just used to it.
no, but but we should call Verizon. All right,
But
so
not
we're
from
gonna
West
call
Mountain.
Verizon. All right. The other thing is, the rave notification, I'm gonna be working with Mike Dempsey on that to put that together. And I wanted to point out to everyone also, you may remember Nancy Starnes. We actually acknowledged her this year, and I got this edition of Sparta Living, and each month they showcase wonderful families and wonderful people all over the town. And this month is Nancy Starnes. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, the fire department is having an open house on Sunday. Do you know what time? 12? So the fire department's having their open house, so we have the police department hanging with heroes Friday night. And then Sunday, the fire department open house at 12 o'clock. And also, the Skylanders football team is hosting their National First Responders Appreciation Game at Sparta, so it's gonna be a busy weekend in Sparta. But I also just wanted to do a shout out to all of our first responders. because it is National First Responders Month. And I know we said something earlier in the month, but I think we can never be too thankful for our first responders. So I just wanted to make that statement. And I think that's it for me.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Couple things. We are still setting up your council member at the public library. We've settled on either the third Thursday or third Friday of the month. We might alternate it some mornings, some evenings, one month to the next. We'll try to hold this thing every month. So we're still putting that together. Hopefully by the next meeting, we will have that program in place. There was I'd like to thank the high school, for putting on a great band competition the other day. It was a lot of fun being there and seeing all the bands, some fantastic performances. We did fill a committee position earlier today. I do acknowledge that there are a number of other applications that we've received. I've asked the clerk to sort of provide a consolidated list of all the vacancies that appear across all of the boards and committees that are at present vacant. We can take a look and see what needs to be filled before we make any more decisions on that. I know we did expand the Environmental Commission by 2, and that I need to move on that. That's a mayoral appointment. So I'll try to have something for the next meeting. And then I did get an email today that Sparta Township was nominated for a Sussex County Economic Development Award by the Sussex County Economic Development Partnership. That they encouraged our attendance for a luncheon on October 20th. I will be out of state at that time as part of the business development. Would you be interested in, or available? I can send you the email.
Yeah, please send it to me. I'm sure I can.
It's a lunch on October 20th. It's during the day. It's a Friday.
That's fine.
It happens to be my anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I can be there.
Okay, thank you. I'll forward that
Send
to
me
you.
info, please. Thank you.
I will. Also, I would like to have the council vote now to place a resolution on the agenda for October 24th meeting that we have a resolution on the agenda to fly the VFW flag on Veterans Day, November 11th. So if I would like to make the motion that we put a resolution on the agenda for next week that we fly the VFW flag on Veterans Day, November 11th. May I have a second for that?
second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, so that motion will be on the next meeting. Thank you. Last thing I'd want to mention is that I'd like to reach out to my German family and friends that October 3rd was Tag der Deutsche Einheit, German Reunification Day. Was celebrated, it happened in 1990. Germany is also associated with Oktoberfest, so this is a real German month for German culture. So shout out to all my German family and friends. And I don't know if anybody noticed, I changed my title today in honor of that. And that's all I have for new business. So at this time, I'd like it up to the public for any comments or questions on anything, including specifically if anybody has any ideas or suggestions for or comments on short-term rentals. And again, please be mindful of our 3-minute speaking limit.
Mark Scott's 9 Pueblo Parkway. On applications, the application period for new planner and attorney closed on August 25th. On September 7th, the planning board stated the review period would begin in 10 days. Last week on October 1st, the applicants were asked to extend their review, their proposals, because Sparta had not had a chance to go over the applications. So each of the applicants, of which there was 10, 2 of which are the existing and incumbents, were contacted and sent letters and asked if they would extend their application for that job. So, I mean, I just don't understand why it's taking so long. We made a decision that we're going to find a new lawyer and a new planning board, a new planner for our planning board, and it's taken quite a while. As you know, we're now being sued by Township. We're all going to count onto our attorney our attorney, which is possibly being replaced, to defend us. Why are we delaying here? We need a new attorney. We need a new planner.
That would be the planning board.
Well, I understand, but you guys run the town, okay? Are we trying to lose? Is this conspiracy? What is this? Why can't we review 10 applications that were all submitted on time? Why can't we review those in 45 days? Why? Why not? What's going on in this town? You know, taxes will rise with Diamond Chip, all right? And we are going to get $2 million in tax revenue. We're possibly going to need a full-time fire department. We're going to need millions and millions in fire trucks, 70-foot fire ladder trucks. And there are none of those existing in the county. I know you all love the shared services comment, but there are none existing in the county. So there will be none to fight a fire in that warehouse. There's millions, if not billions, in externalities that'll be expended in our town: smog, traffic, noise, light, and pollution. The net present value of putting in Diamond Chip will be negative for our town. Thank you very much. And why don't we have Diamond Chip pay to replace all this water stuff? Why are we taking out a bond? Why can't the developer pay for something in our town?
Mayor, time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, I'll just address one thing. I didn't want to do it in between as you were speaking. So the planning board professionals search that's ongoing. So the applications came in around Labor Day, right before Labor Day. And so that is, a month and a week from now. They have to be, it's not just reviewing resumes, so those are RFP responses, so they're, 10, 20 pages long. So first they were screened and sent for legal review and looking for completeness, making sure all the documents were completed properly, all the authorizations, all the references, all the legal qualifications and all that. So it was screened at that point first and then sent back to the township at that point. The documents aren't distributed electronically to anyone. They're in the building. There's a lot of rules around, this is an RFP, around how they're handled, so it's not where people can look at them in their off time. So now they're down to a subset, and the subcommittee is together. As you know, they meet twice a month, if that, right? And now it has to go through subcommittee for the review, compile the information. The planning board, the subcommittee is not deciding anything on their own. The full planning board will review those, decide to interview candidates for both positions. And at that point, once the candidate interviews occur, the planning board again needs to meet and discuss this. This is not happening on off-cycle meetings or electronically, just to clarify. And there was a little bit of a disconnect, I think, on the clock ticking when these came in. I don't think that was clear to everyone up front, that because this is a RFP process, once they are submitted on the last deadline date, that there was a clock that's ticking. And my understanding is that's why the candidates were then contacted to see if they would extend it 30 days to allow a little more room for these to be thoroughly reviewed. It takes a while. So I understand your frustration and concern, but I just wanted to address some of that after your time was up.
Is the planning board cognizant of the possibility that it might have to go back out for bid if it goes over a deadline?
Now, yeah, not in the beginning. Now they are.
And how close are we to that deadline? I think the concern that the community has is that we went through this process, we've narrowed it down to candidates, but if this process takes longer than allowable under the law, you're going to then have to go resubmit it out for bid and further extend the process. Are we at risk of having to do that again?
I will give my opinion on it. The subcommittee is meeting on this coming Monday, so I'll have more information there. I would say, yeah, there's definitely a risk.
And do we
and maybe
know when-
Sam, if you get any process
Do we know when that deadline
information,
is?
We extended it 45 days. After that 45 days,
yeah, it's not extended 45. my understanding is when they're submitted, there's 45 days to review them all and take action.
And we
asked to put in an
extended it.
extension.
We extended it another 45 days. We had to call each one of the professionals and see that they would agree to that.
Okay.
And then once that period's up, then we have to rebid everything again.
Do you know if we've heard back from the,
Yeah, they're all good for it. I mean, we're waiting on the board.
right, I did not know till tonight that that extension was, that we heard back from every candidate that they're okay with that.
If it wasn't, you would have already known. I mean, we did tell your land use department. but-
Well, the original deadline was end of October. Correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it was 45 days from the bid opening.
Yeah, but that was not an extension, that was the original timeframe. So
That's the
now,
original timeframe.
yeah.
We
So now-
had it extended another 45 days.
and that is confirmed?
Yes.
Okay.
So by November 15th or so, they have to fish or cut
No,
bait?
no. End
45
of
days?
October, 45 days.
After October 30th.
Okay, okay, so I guess the hope is that, planning board will meet with all due haste to not blow the deadline.
Well, the deadline is not being blown, just to be clear.
No, I'm not
So,
saying it's
yeah, we
blown.
just
What I'm
heard-
saying is that what I gather from Mr. Scott's presentation is that there's concern that the process has taken too long and that now thankfully, the applicants have granted the extension. And so now we have a 45-day, which would be 45 days from October 30th. So was that December 15th? And if a decision is not made by December 15th, then the process goes back out for bid. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so there's concern. I don't expect there to be a problem, but I can't speak for the process that has to go through in terms of reference checks, background checks. These are not individuals, like in terms of resume, these are firms. Then we have the financial aspect to make sure they fit into the budgetary requirements. So it's a thorough,
Most of these are
complex.
escrow accounts, so you don't really have to worry about that part of it.
And they're already
It's
vetted.
covered by escrows.
Well, that's good, okay.
I mean,
that's-
basically,
yeah.
you have to make your selection for the most qualified positions. The other stuff is handled by our town professionals.
Well, if there's, okay, we could talk
This is a
offline. If there's a
planning board
concern, yeah, if there's a concern about finances, though, we need to know about it because there are fees that get charged to the town for a lot of the work that's done that's not escrowed. So, but we can,
you pay
we can
them
regroup.
regardless.
They're giving you your billable hours.
Talking
It's
about.
billable
Yeah.
hours that we've
Excuse
been
me,
paying.
Councilwoman, what did you say? You
I
have a
said,
question?
yeah, I
is
said,
it?
you're already paying them.
We're not paying these new candidates.
Talking about the professionals.
The
And you're
professionals have
talking
a
about-
rate, right? They have a rate. If one
Correct.
charges $100.
Correct.
Say today, I have no idea. And
Right.
one charges 200, and another candidate comes in and says, we want to charge 300. Don't we need to know that in terms of the vetting process?
In the RFP, I did not see the RFP. It should be very clear.
Yes, so
in the
like,
RFP
you're not listening. My
what the
point
money
is, the data, the finances in the RFP, we need to make sure that that is acceptable from a CFO and from a budgetary standpoint.
Well, an
If it's
RFP
too
should
high,
not
then
have
one would
gone
need to
out.
get cut out.
An RFP should not have gone out. That includes, it should have been very clear. This is the rate. And so we don't,
No, we didn't ask rates, we asked
well,
them
that
to,
should have been in the RFP.
well, that wasn't the advisement we got. We
Money
don't set
wasn't in
rates
the
like that.
RFP?
Money was not in the RFP.
Yes,
On
it was in terms of
ongoing
what they are bidding.
Okay. Again, this is probably a more appropriate conversation for the planning board, but any other? Anything else to add to, or should we move on? All right. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Mike Devine, Oak Parkway. I just would add on, it does seem a little bit, I don't know what the word is. I have confidence in our professionals, but if you had to change horses in the middle of a lawsuit, I'm not sure what complications that introduces.
I agree.
We agree.
A couple of points about the short-term stuff. I'm glad you're addressing it. It's pretty timely. You may know that Lake Mohawk's been wrestling with it for a while. A house down the street from me was just bought by a corporation, and then it's not uncommon, they're gonna have that for their executives when they come in for 3 months, 2 weeks, whatever. And we questioned the lake if they have any reason to object to that. Evidently not. But they're actively looking at bylaw changes. You may just want to be aware of it in case you want to coordinate or whatever. when the bypass first came in, there was an attempt to lure Comfort Inn or something like that on the bypass. Just point that out. Maybe that's a timely thought. My community of Florida, which is a pretty high-end gated community, has been wrestling with short-term rentals, et cetera, for years. We tried all kinds of stuff. What Councilwoman Quinn came down with is essentially what we arrived at. In fact, now a short-term rental is a year. You can't rent anything less than a year. And when you do rent it, the renters have to fill all kinds of applications, be approved by the HOA and all kinds of stuff. So I don't have time to give you all the reasons why we got to that point, but the experience was not good. One other topic quickly, when you're talking about the electronic communication upgrade with the water towers and so forth, hopefully this is overthinking it, but I know other places I'm familiar with, there was concern about intrusion alarms, like some crazy person injecting toxins into the wellhead or to the tanks or anything. I don't know if that's a concern we need to worry about in Sparta, but if there is any kind of intrusion alarms or something, this might be an appropriate time to consider.
I believe that it also would be part of it. I mean, like say, we are putting the cellular over there, so to drop a couple of cameras in there would probably be not a problem at all.
That's why I'm thinking it might be a good time to do it economically. It's probably worth it. You never know the chances that could happen, hopefully not. But thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Again, please just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Terry Michael Clark, 8 White Deer Plaza. I just want to point out how fortunate we are as a community to have a wonderful police department, and I wish our new chief the very best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Agreed.
you.
Rick Finkel, 13 Hayward Road, Sparta. I'm speaking on behalf of 4 short-term rentals. Just for transparency, I don't have a property I plan on renting. I don't have family that does that, but I have used them many times, and they're very helpful. I've used them within New Jersey and other states and even internationally. I think the restrictions you're talking about putting in place would just put a squash to the whole thing. So let's not say we're for it, but we're going to put all these restrictions to restrict the use of short-term rentals. First, I would suggest or probably guess that some, if not most of you, have used short-term rentals in the past. I also ask, where do people go when they come for vacation, when they come to visit family, when they come for a wedding, when they come for a funeral, class reunions, etc.? Right? There's no place. You send them to Newton, you send them to Rockaway, or if they're rich, you could send them to Crystal Springs. Okay? There's no facilities. In fact, one of the boards just put a restriction or trying to put a restriction on the property across from ShopRite to limit or eliminate the potential of a hotel motel going on that property. So we're not doing anything to encourage or make it viable for people to have a short-term stay in or near Sparta. I would also suggest think about a real estate transaction. It's not uncommon for someone to sell their house. Their new house isn't ready for 2 or 3 weeks, and they rent the house they're living in until their new house is open. I don't know how you would control that, but based on your definition, that would be illegal. That's a short-term rental. You had this nice presentation by the Sussex County Chamber of Commerce about recreation in the area. They talk about tourism. They talk about people coming into this area to enjoy what we live with every day, but there's no place for people to stay. I think 1 or 2 days is not, well, 1 day maybe, but 2 or 3 day short-term rental in this type of community, based on the rents people would probably charge, would eliminate a lot of the riffraff that you guys are probably concerned about. I just rent one 2 weeks ago in Long Beach Island for the Chowder Fest. I wasn't going there for a month. I was going there for 2 nights. My wife, my kids, and my granddaughter. We treated that place better than my own house, quite honestly. So I think as much as you guys might be leery to consider short-term rentals, and again, I have no vested interest in this, but I think you're missing an opportunity, and you need to look at ways to encourage people to come and places to stay and not restrict it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'll be less than 3 minutes. Beth Broderick, North Shore. Christine and Josh, I actually, oh, sorry, it's
Yeah.
not designed for little
That's
people.
okay.
I actually agree with you guys that the short-term rentals should not be, and you too, in residential areas. We've already talked about trespass and traffic and security issues in a lot of the residential areas. We can't turn around and say it's okay to have an Airbnb or other weekend rental in residential areas, whether it's here, up Glen Road, wherever. It's not going to be conducive to the safety and security of the neighborhoods or Sparta as a whole. I think that we do need to have something here, but not where you have little kids and buses and wondering who is wasted at the house next door on a long weekend. I think that for a security reason, or actually for another option, you do have to look at people that are having their houses renovated so that they have somewhere to go or their house burns down. I don't think we can exclude it completely, but if we could look at maybe finding a place somewhere that's not going to disrupt the character of the residential areas or cause a bigger problem for Chief McCarrick and his team and what they're already dealing with and the challenges that we have. And I did it in a minute and a half.
Well, like we said before, I think there's a lot of areas that's mixed use, where even people that live in those areas expect there to be random people walking because there's businesses there.
Right.
And I think there's a big portion of our town that is zoned like that, where it would be okay.
Yeah, there's definitely a place for it, but I think that we have to look to make sure that it fits with the personality or the character of where we're looking. You wouldn't want to put it like next to Alpine School or, back behind it. But if you're out where, like Josh just said, you have a mixed use area where, hey, I don't know, people are here for 2 or 3 days, fine. I think the gentleman here had a point too. If you're between houses for a short period of time, less than a year, I think we have to take that in too. I mean, if your house burns down and you have 4 months, you don't want to say you're locked into a lease for,
Well, that's another reason why I'm saying you should be able to put a variance in. If you have a special need of something, you should be able to put a variance in or something like that. If your house burns down, God forbid, but keep talking and I'll talk when you're done. 'Cause I don't.
no, that's okay. I was done. I agree. I think we're on the same page for a change, but I think we have to really look at it before we could put the whole kibosh on it. But I think we have to tread lightly too and not cause a bigger problem for everybody down the road. I'm done. I'm still under 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just 2 comments on, some of the speakers. One with respect to Mr. Scott about, changing horses midstream, litigated for 25 years. I can tell you that it happens. I've been involved in 3 cases recently where we had finished discovery and the defendants all of a sudden got a brand-new firm because we were headed to trial. And it happens a lot that you get separate trial counsel because they're more experienced. Trial is a different animal than discovery. Appellate law, if you're going to take a case up to the Third Circuit or you're going to cert, you don't, even though you've handled the case below, you often get appellate counsel experience in that. So it's not uncommon really to change horses midstream or to get new counsel in the middle of litigation. And then the second thing that I failed to mention about the short-term rentals, one thing that we have to look at is there are studies, that as short-term rentals go up, the ability to have long-term rentals and go down, and it has an effect on housing availability. And so one thing that Sparta has to consider is that, we have people who, complain all the time, I can't rent a property. Someone who wants to rent for a year or 2 years doesn't have the ability to do so in Sparta. But if you increase the amount of short-term rentals, you will crowd out the ability of homes to be available for long-term. So I think an assessment needs to be made of what our demand is just to have rentals. And, I mean, you know, and that's part of the reason why New York, you know, cracked down on these, because it was driving up the rents that people would pay. It was also causing unavailability of long-term rentals. And so there's an interplay between those two things. And so I think one thing that we will have to consider is, you know, a demand for long-term rentals that we have. I know Councilwoman Quinn has spoken eloquently about the need for senior housing, about, you know, there's some seniors who want to be able to leave their house and be able to have sort of affordable housing. So there is an impact that short-term rentals have on affordable housing, availability of long-term housing, that all need to be considered. So, and I know that we will consider it and hopefully come up with a, you know, a reasonable response. But I share, you know, Mr. Finkel's, you know, concern that I would like to be able to, that when you have company come in, you don't have to send them all the way to Vernon or somewhere else. I think there is a demand and need for it here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think that concludes our items on our agenda. Any other, actually, before I do, any other comments from the public before we move on?
So I would just recommend anyone that's watching the meeting right now, we are interested in your input as a community. Many people have already come to us over the past year or so. So if you're in earshot, if you're watching it, please reach out. Our emails are all online. Please feel free to send us an email and share your thoughts with us around short-term rentals.
Excellent. All right, seeing none from the public, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.